She spoke with unwavering steadiness as she shared the news with me. The first detail that caught my attention was that Megan possessed an unwavering serenity, a steady presence amidst turmoil. Even when emotions ran high, she always kept things understated. She would merely soften her tone, as if the cacophony of existence was already overwhelming. We found ourselves in her kitchen once more, a familiar setting where laughter echoed and conversations flowed. It was the same space where we had shared countless moments, venting our frustrations and dreaming up birthday celebrations or summer adventures that ultimately remained just that, dreams. The memory of the afternoon light dancing on the edge of her coffee mug lingers in my mind. "I have been diagnosed with breast cancer," she stated. In an instant. No preamble. Without a moment's doubt. Phase 2. Arrived after the expected time. Fierce yet manageable. She uttered every phrase she had practiced in front of a mirror, I'm certain. Words she likely rehearsed to prevent me from unraveling. And I did not. Not at that moment. I inclined my head in agreement. I paid attention. I assured her that I would be present for each and every appointment. I assured her that we would navigate this journey side by side. Yet within, a sound of something breaking echoed through the air. Megan and I crossed paths when I was 23 years old. At the age of 26, she stood on the precipice of her future. In a town that was unfamiliar to us, we found ourselves navigating part-time jobs while grappling with the complexities of making our marriages thrive alongside men we believed we understood. She exuded a fierce energy and a brilliant glow. I moved with care, my voice barely a whisper. She infused my existence with vibrant hues. I offered her my unwavering support. We complemented one another perfectly. In the span of 27 years of unwavering friendship, navigating through the heartache of miscarriages, the pain of broken bones, the sorrow of family losses, the upheaval of job changes, and the challenges of aging parents, I never once envisioned a life that didn't include her presence. With a gentle motion, she extended her arm across the table and grasped my hand. I'm fine, Kath, she replied. I simply require your strength in this moment. I nodded once more. Yet it seemed as though I was submerged beneath the waves. As the day wore on, I found myself lingering in my car for a full 20 minutes, contemplating before finally making my way home. I held back my tears. I remained silent. I found myself fixated on the steering wheel, as if it held the secrets I sought, as if it could guide me through the painstaking process of a drawn-out farewell that unfolds over the course of months. That evening I reached out to my husband. I shared it all with him. He uttered the appropriate phrases. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. Please tell me if she requires anything. I truly valued that. I certainly did. However, Daniel, who is Megan's husband? He remained quite reserved during our encounter. He merely nodded, pressed a gentle kiss to Megan's temple, and clasped her hand with such intensity that it stirred a deep ache within me. His silence held a certain weight, a tangible presence, as if he bore the burden of the universe simply by remaining motionless. In some inexplicable way, that brought me a sense of solace that no words could ever convey. At that moment, I was unaware that this was just the start of something significant. Devoid of affection. Not at this moment. Two figures linger at the precipice of an uninvited reality, each grasping the same woman as she gradually slips beyond their reach. As the third week of chemotherapy unfolded, the world around me started to fade into a haze. Days blurred together, medications, scheduled visits, and waiting areas infused with the scent of antiseptic and lukewarm coffee. Megan found herself devoid of hunger. Then there was her hair. Then her perception of time. Yet her humor remained untouched. She continued to share her humor whenever possible, and her smile lit up the room as soon as I entered. I began to maintain a schedule, not due to any external pressure, but because it proved beneficial. Trips to the grocery store. Preparing meals in advance. Tidying up the guest room on the upper floor. Daniel often found solace in the comfort of his home office, yet there were times when the burden felt overwhelmingly heavy for a single soul to bear. Thus I bore it alongside him. The three of us fell into a cadence, one forged in silent sacrifice and unvoiced weariness. On pleasant days, Megan would settle at the kitchen table, savoring herbal tea just as we once did. On difficult days, she remained almost motionless on the couch, slipping in and out of slumber, her complexion wan and her fingers quivering beneath the blanket. I frequently found myself working late into the evening. Times I would drift off on their sofa, only to be stirred by the gentle sound of Daniel in the kitchen, either washing dishes or rinsing one of Megan's mugs. He always made me feel valued and appreciated. No one ever inquired why I chose not to return home. It was clear to both of us. Neither of us wished to part from her presence. In the stillness of the night, just past the stroke of midnight, I ventured outside to breathe in the cool, crisp air. The living room felt uncomfortably warm, excessively quiet. Daniel occupied the porch, perched on the steps in a hoodie and jeans, his hands resting between his knees. He raised his gaze as I approached him. At last, she drifted into slumber. Indeed, I murmured, enveloping myself in a comforting embrace. We lingered in silence for what felt like an eternity, merely inhaling and exhaling, merely attuned to the whispers of the wind as it dances through the branches. She despises the weakness that's creeping in, he remarked after a pause. Detests that we're both observing. I understand, I replied. Yet, I believe a piece of her finds comfort in the knowledge that we are present. He gave a slight nod. At times, I find myself questioning whether I am truly doing enough. I shifted my gaze to him then, truly gazed upon him. The creases at the corners of his eyes appeared more pronounced. His voice, typically unwavering, now carried a gritty undertone. In that instant, the figure before me was no longer the man I had always recognized as Megan's husband. I witnessed a soul coming apart, strand by strand, desperately striving to maintain composure for her benefit. I rested my hand softly on his arm. You're handling it all, I remarked. All that truly holds significance. Our gazes intertwined. In that fleeting moment, just a heartbeat, the universe shrank to encompass only the two of us, huddled together in the chill on a serene porch, bound solely by our mutual sorrow and the profound pain of loving someone beyond our reach of protection. Silence enveloped us that night, leaving no further words to be spoken. Yet as dawn broke, Megan's smile and her soft whisper of, "Thanks for staying, Kath," revealed that she shared the sentiment. The transition, the intimacy, a peculiar delicate connection is starting to emerge between myself and the man who was once merely my best friend's spouse. The night Megan experienced her first truly severe episode, I found myself unable to sleep at all. A fever marked the beginning. Then came the vomiting. Then the relentless tremors persisted. We hurried her to the emergency room shortly after 8 p.m. and did not make it back until almost 2 a.m. They brought her condition under control, instructed us to keep an eye on her, informed us it was an integral aspect of the journey. Integral to the journey. It was a phrase that rendered the sacred into the mundane. Megan lay peacefully in slumber within the guest room. Daniel and I chose to allow her to rest there for the night. It was nearer to the bathroom, more refreshing, and offered a serene atmosphere. I lingered in the hallway, attuned to the steady cadence of her breath beyond the door. As I made my way toward the stairs, I caught sight of the kitchen light glowing softly. Daniel stood at the stove, his bare feet touching the cool floor, clad in sweatpants and a simple t-shirt, as he poured steaming water into 2 waiting mugs. The aroma of chamomile wafted through the atmosphere. "You ought to take a moment to rest," I murmured softly as I entered the room. He gave a slight shake of his head. I was unable to. Thought perhaps tea could provide some relief. Without a word, he placed a mug in my hands. Without any sweetness, precisely how I preferred it. I found myself pondering the source of his knowledge. Perhaps he had simply made an astute guess, and it turned out to be correct. We lingered at the kitchen table, enveloped in a heavy silence. Not the sort of silence that yearned for words, the kind that exists solely between two souls too weary to maintain the facade. "She let out a scream tonight," he remarked after a pause. His voice faltered on the word. I found myself at a loss, uncertain of the path forward. I've been there for her through it all. The panic attacks, the funerals, the depths of depression, but I've never witnessed her in that state before. He ran his hand across his face. I simply remained in place, utterly devoid of value. "You weren't," I murmured gently. "She required your presence, and you were present. That is far from useless, Daniel. That concludes it all." He cast his gaze in my direction then. Once more I experienced that piercing, peculiar pain in my chest. The weight of that exquisite softness. There was a gentle warmth in his gaze as I uttered his name. His unwavering gaze as I spoke softly to him was striking. My heart swayed toward his, unbidden and free. She often remarked that you were the most resilient person she had ever encountered, he stated. I gazed into the depths of my tea. She consistently perceived greater potential in me than I ever recognized within myself. She was right. Once more silence envelopes the space. Yet it feels more burdensome now. His hand lingered on the table close to mine, merely taking a moment to unwind, falling short. Yet, by the grace of fate, it was perilously near. I chose to stay put. I refrained from leaning in as well. I simply remained. In that moment, I felt anything but someone's closest confidant, or the spouse of another. I experienced the sensation of a woman seated opposite a man who truly comprehended her, in a manner that no one else had for years. We remained untouched. Our lips never met. As I rose to place the mugs in the sink, I sensed his presence trailing behind me, just far enough to maintain a respectful distance, yet near enough to evoke a palpable tension. In that moment it dawned on me that we were treading a precarious path. It was inevitable that one of us would eventually cross that line. I'm uncertain about the reasons behind my actions. Perhaps it was a matter of instinct. Perhaps it was sheer fatigue. Or perhaps it was the gentle manner in which he uttered thank you, as I walked by in the hallway, soft, distant, as if he were expressing gratitude not merely for the tea, or the companionship, but for everything that had transpired. For bearing the weight of the unspoken. The clock had just struck 1 a.m. We lingered by the stairs, poised to disperse to our respective corners of the house, I to the couch below, he to the bedroom he occupied with my best friend. The hallway light cast a soft, golden glow, as if every element of that moment yearned to evoke a sense of safety that was, in truth, elusive. He appeared utterly exhausted, not in a physical sense, though I was aware of it, but in that profound, soul-wrenching manner that grief can erode a person's essence. His shoulders drooped ever so slightly. His eyes were encircled in crimson, yet devoid of tears. I extended my hand, almost instinctively, and rested it on his shoulder. It lacked any semblance of romance. It was an unexpected turn of events. It was simply a reflection of humanity, a touch that conveys understanding and recognition. I remain present. You are not alone in this journey. Yet I remained steadfast, refusing to withdraw. Nor did he. He remained still, eyes shut, as if time had stretched into an eternity. My hand lingers gently upon his shirt. My thumb absent-mindedly glides over the fabric. And then, gradually, his hand rose and enveloped mine. He refrained from squeezing. Not a single word escaped his lips. He simply grasped it, embraced me. The gravity of that instant, that still unfathomable instant, bore down on us more than anything we had experienced up to that point. In that hallway, he transcended the role of merely being Megan's husband. He was known as Daniel. I was more than just her closest companion. I was the sole individual who grasped the depth of my love for her, while simultaneously recognizing the painful truth that we were slipping away from her grasp. He slowly opened his eyes. I gazed up at him, my breath shallow. Yet nothing transpired. Not at this moment. We distanced ourselves as if emerging from a dream, uncertain whether it had truly occurred. He murmured, "Good night, Kathy." And I murmured it in return. As I reclined on the couch, the lingering warmth of his hand over mine remained palpable. Not from the embrace of warmth, yet from the burden of understanding that what had just transpired between us transcended mere solace. It marked the dawn of an unnameable journey. As I ponder, we were both aware that this was just the beginning. It was handed to me in a plain envelope, devoid of any identification, a delicate fold of lavender paper, quietly nestled in my purse when I least expected it. The following day I discovered it at home, following one of her extended chemotherapy sessions. That afternoon she appeared wan and subdued, too weary to utter a word. Her head gently resting on Daniel's shoulder as I tended to the humidifier and scrutinized the pill chart for what felt like the 100th time. It nearly escaped my notice. Initially, I assumed it was merely a receipt or perhaps an outdated grocery list. Yet, as I unfolded it and beheld her handwriting, precise, deliberate, slightly unsteady, my breath hitched in my throat. Catherine, I'm uncertain about the amount of time that remains for me. I don't express that for the sake of theatrics. I've come to terms with it. I truly have. For the past 20 years I've observed the two of you, you and Daniel, moving in a delicate ballet, akin to celestial bodies tracing their own paths in the vastness of space. Near, perpetually near, yet never intersecting. I'm uncertain whether this feeling can truly be called love. Perhaps it is. Perhaps it is something different. Here is what I am certain of. If I should go first, please look after him. He will not request it. He will feign that everything is all right. Yet he will be utterly adrift. I am familiar with you. You'll observe. You will remain. Should anything transpire between the two of you, ensure that it's authentic. No sympathy. Not sorrow. Free from blame. Authentic. I shall not be present to offer you my forgiveness. Rest assured I will comprehend. I have always placed my trust in you regarding him. Perhaps, I still do. Affection. Meg. I perused it thrice. In that moment I found myself on the floor of my bedroom, tears streaming down my face in a way I hadn't allowed myself to since the day she revealed her illness. For that letter, that elusive, elegant, maddening letter, was simultaneously a blessing and a burden. Did not liberate me. It failed to grant me permission. It complicated everything. For now, should anything occur, it would no longer remain hidden. A decision awaits. One she anticipated, and one she believed I would not misuse. I carefully folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope. I chose not to share that with Daniel. Not at this moment. A fragment of my being yearned to set it ablaze. Another part longed to hold it close to my heart, never to release it. That night, as I reclined on the couch, the creaking of the stairs signaled Daniel's movements above, while the faint sound of Megan's cough echoed from behind her closed door. In that moment a revelation struck me, one that resonated deep within my very being. I found myself questioning which aspect of my being held more power than the other. The companion, the spouse, the lady, or the one that Megan had already absolved long before I ever admitted it. The morning we laid her to rest, the sky wept with rain. It's not the kind of rain that pounds against windows or renders umbrellas useless. It was merely a gentle, persistent rain, as if the heavens had begun their lamentation before any of us had the chance to feel it. The congregation filled the church to capacity. Megan had influenced more lives than she ever acknowledged. Neighbors, past colleagues, ladies from the book club we initiated but never completed. I positioned myself at the forefront beside Daniel. His tie hung askew, and his eyes were rimmed with red yet devoid of tears. He appeared more aged than I had ever witnessed before. The service was exquisite, uncomplicated. She would have despised anything ostentatious. On the altar rested lilacs, her cherished bloom. A photograph captures her radiant smile, a glass of wine in hand, her hair tousled by the breeze. That's the image of her that will forever linger in my mind. Vibrant. I uttered my words, not out of desire but out of necessity. I recounted the moment we first crossed paths in the checkout line at the grocery store, both of us reaching for the same bag of apples. She extended an invitation for coffee the following week, and thus began her presence in my life for nearly 30 years. Her stubbornness was matched only by her sharp wit, and her kindness often emerged in unexpected moments. I refrained from discussing the cancer. I refrained from discussing her appearance during those last weeks, nor did I mention the countless nights I spent weeping in my car before stepping into her home as if all was well. I merely expressed this. Her love ran profound, and she placed her trust deeply. Fortune smiled upon me, placing me in the fortunate position of experiencing both. As I descended, Daniel rose to his feet. Yet, he refrained from approaching the podium. He enveloped me in his embrace, right there amidst the crowd, and released a solitary soft sob against my shoulder. Silence enveloped the room. No one was required to. Once more, I found myself spending the night at his house, not from a sense of duty, not due to his request. Yet, the silence within me seemed utterly intolerable. He lingered before finally succumbing to the call of sleep. We lounged on the couch, the lights dimmed, the lingering scent of Megan's beloved vanilla candle enveloping the space. He remarked, "She was aware. Who we are. Concerning the connection we share. Long before we took that step. I did not refute it. What was the purpose of it all?" His voice faltered. "Without her, I am lost in the shadows of my own identity. There's no need to have all the answers right now," I remarked. He rested his head gently on my shoulder. For what felt like an eternity we remained there. Two souls intertwined, fragile and hesitant, paralyzed by our fears. Our lips never met. We refrained from any further contact beyond that. Yet, as I shut my eyes, the burden of all that remained unspoken pressed heavily between us. And I understood. When we found ourselves alone again, the facade would be impossible to maintain. 17 days had passed since the funeral. Megan's shoes lingered by the front door as silent testament to her recent presence. The robe remained draped over the back of the bathroom door. Her perfume, the one that always evoked the essence of wildflowers in summer, hung in the hallway like a specter unaware of its unwelcome presence. I visited that evening to deliver a casserole that had been sent by someone from the church. Daniel opened the door, clad in a soft gray sweater with the sleeves casually rolled to his forearms, his feet bare against the cool floor. His eyes appeared to be less bloodshot, yet still weary. "There's no need to keep bringing food," he remarked. "I understand," I said, entering the room. "However, I'm aware that your appetite has diminished." He remained silent. He filled our glasses with wine, the exquisite bottle he and Megan had been reserving for their anniversary. He opened it, remaining silent about her name. We both chose to remain silent about the date. We dined in quietude. Silence that isn't burdensome. Simply recognizable. It was as if we had both become accustomed to occupying the void that Megan had vacated with our very existence. Following dinner, I volunteered to assist with the cleanup. He shook his head in disbelief. "Would you care to join me for a moment?" he inquired. Thus I proceeded. We settled onto the couch, the television silent, with the sole illumination emanating from a modest lamp tucked away in the corner. He shifted his gaze in my direction, not with haste nor with flair, but gradually, almost deliberately, as if it had required all this time for him to gather the courage. "Her laughter lingers in my ears," he remarked. My gaze fell upon him. "I feel the same. I find myself imagining her appearing around the corner, irritated that we're lingering in the shadows." I wore a smile, yet a heaviness lingered in my chest. "And then," he continued, "I remember she's not coming back and I gaze upon you. That brought me to a halt. Are you looking at me?" He inclined his head in agreement. I find myself in a state of unease. Yet I sense a diminished solitude. He extended his hand then, gradually as if inquiring without words, and lightly caressed the side of my face with his fingers. My breath was momentarily suspended. "Is this acceptable?" he whispered. I lacked faith in my voice, so I merely nodded. And then, after all those weeks filled with near misses, hushed confessions and fleeting glances, he kissed me. Gentle, leisurely. It was as if we both recognized that we were stepping into a realm from which there would be no return. It lacked the sting of betrayal. It resembled sorrow, manifesting in an unfamiliar form. A fresh addition. A bond we hadn't sought, yet had blossomed all the same. As he withdrew, he leaned his forehead gently against mine. "I'm not sure what this is," he remarked. "I don't either," I murmured. "Yet it exists." That night we did not share a bed. He pressed his lips against mine once more, lingering more assured, and then he guided me to the door. As I turned to depart, his fingers brushed against the hem of my coat, lingering for a moment longer than necessary. As I cast one final glance at him beneath the glow of the porch light, a chilling realization washed over me. The man I had cherished as my best friend's spouse, it had subtly transformed into the sole refuge that still resonated with the essence of home. It transpired on a Thursday. The sky hung heavy with clouds, not ominous, merely a gentle shade of pale gray that enveloped the world in a serene hush. A day that beckons you to retreat indoors, to shut the windows tight, and allow the quiet to speak for itself. Seeing him was never part of my intentions. I had merely stopped by to return a casserole dish that had slipped my mind entirely. As I rapped on the door, he swung it open, and his expression conveyed a silent message. He was far from all right. "Sleep has eluded me," he confessed. "No greetings. Without any introduction. Only the truth. Are you seeking companionship?" I inquired. He inclined his head in agreement. I stepped inside after him. The atmosphere in the house was denser than normal, as if the very atmosphere had become dense with all the unspoken words between us. Megan's photograph remained perched on the mantel, a silent testament to moments past. I found myself unable to gaze upon it. He poured the whiskey this time. There shall be no wine. No leisurely taste of collective recollection. Merely a sensation more acute, a feeling that seared as it descended. We found ourselves on the couch once more, even nearer than we had been. My thigh grazed his and we remained still. He glanced in my direction. "I'm at a loss here," he admitted. "Which section?" I inquired. "Any of it." I found myself without a response. Merely a thousand aches. As he leaned in, I found myself moving towards him, bridging the distance between us. This kiss was bold, unlike the first. It was not a request. It lacked caution. It was essential. Two souls surrendered to the soul warmth that remained within their grasp. He drew me close and I surrendered to the embrace. My fingers wove through his sweater, my form curving into his as if we were always meant to fit together. A truth I had never been permitted to acknowledge. His lips traced the curve of my neck, brushing against the line of my jaw, and I released a breath I hadn't felt since before Megan's diagnosis. Garments vanished in fragments, silently, devoid of fanfare. Silence enveloped us. Words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of silence, threatening to fracture the fragile beauty of the moment. We shifted as if woven from the threads of memory, hunger, and guilt in the shadows. Flesh against flesh, breath mingling with breath. And when we finally fell into one another, it wasn't the peak of pleasure that unraveled me. It was in the way he embraced me afterward, as if I were something invaluable, as if I hadn't spent years enveloped in quietude as a woman. It felt as though he desired to hold on to me, rather than merely the solace I provided. Yet, amidst that warmth, within that profound tenderness, guilt coiled like smoke around the periphery of all things. In that bedroom, the one that lingered with the subtle scent of lavender and Megan's shampoo, I could no longer deceive myself. I had ventured beyond the boundaries. No sorrow could ever justify it. Yet I remained still. I remained, pressed against the figure who had chosen to remain, and pondered whether love and betrayal could coexist in the same space, and yet allow you to drift into slumber. I chose not to reveal it to him immediately. Not that I lacked the desire. Yet I found myself at a loss for words, unable to articulate a thought that lacked a clear starting point. What is the best way to reveal something that began in sorrow? In the company of unspoken words? With a letter you never sought, and a hand you didn't intend to grasp? It was on a Sunday that I finally revealed the truth to my husband. We found ourselves gathered in the kitchen, the very table where we once debated bills and shared laughter over charred toast. He was engrossed in something on his tablet. I found myself gazing into my coffee, as if it held the promise of an escape. I shared a bed with Daniel. It emerged diminutive, nearly devoid of weight. If I whispered it gently, perhaps the pain would lessen. He hesitated to lift his gaze immediately. When he did, his eyes remained calm and composed. His face remained unflushed. He remained still, not casting anything aside, nor rising to his feet, nor raising his voice in a shout. He merely blinked, and then inquired, "When?" Following the memorial service. A moment of stillness. Acute. Precise. "Oh my God," he murmured. It had only been a month since Megan left. And there it stood. The truth I had been struggling to voice, that our actions transcended mere betrayal. The moment arrived far too early. Excessively unrefined. Excessive. I hadn't intended for this to happen, I admitted, my voice trembling. It wasn't merely a hidden desire. It transcended the mere act of intimacy. He was simply present. and I felt a deep ache within me. He was in pain, and there exists a certain connection between us. There's no need for an explanation, he interrupted, his tone devoid of emotion. Yet I did. For if I failed to act, I would be reduced to merely being the woman who shared a bed with her best friend's husband. It seems I've harbored feelings for him far longer than I ever acknowledged, I confessed. Yet, I always held myself back from truly experiencing it. Only after her departure. And now that I possess this awareness, I cannot escape the emotions it brings. His gaze sharpened. Thus, this is not guilt. This is your decision to select him. For the first time in ages, I chose honesty over the urge to protect him with a lie. I'm still uncertain about my choice, I replied. I can no longer maintain the facade of being someone I'm not. He refrained from raising his voice. He merely remained still. Exited the kitchen. He gently shut the door behind him. I lingered in silence, the room enveloped in stillness, the coffee now a forgotten chill. The phrase best friend hovered around me like a predatory bird, waiting for the right moment to swoop in. She had vanished completely. She had scattered fragments of her essence within each of us. And now I had shattered all that she had entrusted me to safeguard. The atmosphere of the house shifted once I shared my truth with him. Keep it down. Not chillier. Simply void. As if every window had been flung wide, allowing all the air to escape. The tranquility had shifted. It now bore sharp contours. Pointed and precise. 2 days later, I gathered my belongings into a bag. Not due to a choice I had made. Yet remaining seemed akin to deception. Each room murmured a reflection of a self I could no longer inhabit. I delayed my visit to Daniel's. I drove for hours without a destination in mind, veering into an abandoned lot on the outskirts of town, a place where I could unravel without anyone witnessing my descent. I switched off the engine. I sat there, my hands resting firmly on the wheel. Megan occupied my thoughts. Concerning the sound of her laughter. Concerning that letter, it remains neatly folded within my jewelry box, reminiscent of a ticking clock. Ensure its authenticity, she had penned. No sympathy. Not sorrow. Free from blame. Authentic. In that moment a thought crossed my mind. How can one gauge the essence of real, when faced with such profound pain? As I approached his house, the glow of the porch light welcomed me. As per usual. As if it remained in her possession. As if she had merely crossed the threshold for a fleeting moment. He swung the door open, silence enveloping the moment. He merely gazed at me. As if he had been anticipating this moment. As if he had always been aware. I informed him, I remarked. Daniel gave a single nod. His voice remained unwavering. Are you okay? It was the identical question he posed to me the very first time I visited after Megan's diagnosis. Once more I found myself at a loss for words. As I crossed the threshold I entered the space. Shut the door behind me. The residence was immaculate. Excessively pristine. As if a soul had dedicated countless hours to erase the sorrow embedded in the floorboards. It was a failure. We settled onto the couch. The very couch where I had once served tea to Megan. Where I had folded her blankets and shared laughter over terrible films. At this moment the cushions had an unfamiliar quality. As if they were part of another's existence. Daniel faced me. I'm uncertain about the validity of what we share, he remarked. Yet, it's the only thing that resonates with authenticity at this moment. Our gazes locked. I did not arrive here seeking solace, I murmured. I arrived at this place because all else ceased to hold meaning. He extended his hand toward mine. He grasped it as he had done that evening in the corridor, not with a sense of urgency, yet accompanied by acknowledgement. What if this is everything we possess? He inquired. In the wake of her absence, amidst the sorrow and the weight of remorse, what if it's simply us? I surveyed the surroundings of the room. In every framed photo her ghost lingers on. In the recollection of our former selves, before we experienced the void of her absence. In the existence we never intended to create side by side, and now found ourselves uncertain of how to depart from. I posed the singular question that held all significance. Is that sufficient? We remained silent. For certain inquiries, silence speaks louder than words. They are intended to be experienced fully. As his fingers intertwined with mine, I was aware this was not the conclusion. It marked the dawn of an uncharted journey for both of us. A fragment of something once whole. A whisper of stillness. Something that, in spite of it all, could very well be genuine.